now, the everyday state, negotiating power and practices being chaired by Monica Gata. Just one small announcement. On our love and happiness notwithstanding, we do have 3 panelists, and it would be nice if we can listen to all 3 and concentrate on all 3. They also deserve our love and happiness.
Hello dear students, colleagues, friends, scholars, researchers, historians, potential historians. Very warm welcome to all of you. And by the way, I'm very excited and honored to chair this session. A minor personal note that I'm very proud to have Umar Khalid amongst us today. I haven't met him, so what an honor to meet him now on this platform and in these circumstances. So very warm welcome to Umar. And I have 3 very exciting and fascinating papers. The first is of course by Umar, Changing Village Authorities in Adivasi Hinterlands, State, Community and Contingencies of the New Ancient King, 1830 to 1893. The second one is by Rajita Mazumdar, Colonial State and Resource Frontiers, Tracing the Politics of Appropriating Rubber in the North-Eastern Frontier of British India, 1810 to 1879. And the third one, first belonging from the 19th century to the 20th century, Systemized Corruption, a case study of Sindh, Gunja Mukherjee. All 3 are from stages, and now I will not take more time and I will go to thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the faculty and everyone in CHS for supporting the last few days. Before I begin my paper, my apologies. I'm very unprepared for this paper for obvious reasons. But I'm still prepared. I am still present the paper. This paper is 2 days of my research in this area of syndrome in the present-day state of the country. I am looking at in this paper on how syndrome was constituted and how it was hierarchy within those inhabitants in what he constitutes as a result of the encounter. Over the 19th century. I'll read out and begin the paper. In 1893, in the Zimbabwe region of Chotanagpur Plateau, the British were contemplating and imposing a new rent scheme as part of the new Sovereign Settlement Ordinance. This new scheme entailed imposing rents on the upland of the undulating terrain of Zimbabwe. These areas, locally known as the Gora lands, because of the location of the upland of the plateau, were the best fertile areas compared to the lowlands, as they had a low moisture retention capacity. For the local tribal population, however, these were extremely important areas. They were used especially by the most marginal amongst the local population with no land holdings, largely for the purpose of breeding their animals. Alongside, they were also used for cultivation of certain coarser forms of crops, which should be forms of cultivation. For a long period since the British took over the region, these areas had been left unassessed, and therefore this change was going to be a drastic one. And as such, there were various fears and doubts amongst the colonial officials before going ahead with such a scheme. To allay these fears and the new changes that were going to be brought in the region, and to ensure that this would be acceptable to the local traditions, conference was organized in one of the villages to take the consent of the people themselves. It was attended by hundreds of representatives of the people, mostly the tribal people. During the conference, when the proposal to access the uplands, the Gora lands, were finally take place, there were long deliberations among the headmen, and no consensus could be reached. And eventually, the headmen then demanded a week's time from the settlement office. A few days later, a petition signed by around 40 tribal headmen was submitted to the colonial authorities, expressing their agreement to this new rent scheme. Another petition was also submitted, which was signed by a greater number of headmen, but that was not accepted by the government. This former one, signed was rather by a headman called Captain Manki, who was brandished as the voice of the people by the British, was seen as exemplifying the consent of the locals to this new scheme, bringing the bands as a result of broad assessment, and this led to a phenomenal increase in total rent collected over the next few years. What do examples such as these which bring out the fractured nature of Adivasi communities and their responses to state interventions have tell us about the process of change and resistance. In the last decade or so, as large swaths of tribal heartlands have been encouraged into our work of civil war and scandal over natural resources, imageries of Adivasi communities standing up armed with traditional weapons in defense of their commons against the incursion of the state market and the nations outside has become quite popular. Several debates around urban self-governance have come center stage and constitutional recognition of customary village bodies. But the government's claims of recognizing special individual rights of Adivasis are all being increasingly invoked to protest against the forced land grab. These invocations, in fact, are not new, and are in consonance with how many Adivasi organizations and groups have, from the time of colonial rule, highlighted the distinctiveness of their way of life from their daily practices to the notion of self-governance to press for their demands. Central to such invocations is the conceptualization of the Adivasis as a homogeneous community or homogeneous communities whose interests are best encapsulated within their own local bodies, in which therefore can be used as an efficient weapon against external state power. This paper and my larger study, looking at this region of Singhbhum, seeks to interrogate and question the seeding of history, that seeks to posit the notion of an Adivasi community essentially opposed to the incursion of a modern state. The histories of tribes have for long been trapped within and inside the outsider framework, tribal, non-tribal, community, state, market framework. And this has persisted over the different perspectives that have opened up from the early national historiography to the later subaltern intervention of subaltern scholars. But somewhere this boundary has persisted. I seek to question this boundary from inside and outside. Our attempt rather would be to show how, rather than being an external actor intervening in the society from outside, the colonial state consolidated itself in the region by skillfully exploiting the many individuals within these communities. In other words, the colonial state's intervention in the region can be seen as constitutive of, just as it was simultaneously constituted by, the internal hierarchies. And unintuitiveness to this internal differentiation within those called administrative parlance and scheduled tribes can otherwise lead us to reducing the complex process of colonial reorganization of the region into a flat and linear narrative from the common scope. This complex and complicated process led to the exaggeration of the older hierarchies as well as the creation of new ones within the movement. As for the sources that have largely required for the purpose of this paper, the colonial state, based on its surveillance and operations, periodically came up with exhaustive reports detailing the changes in the region and proposing new schemes. These reports, for all the figures and statistics they were provided, for all the practical uses they had for the administrators, make the workings of the colonial revenue machinery largely abusive. So for our purposes, we have tried to situate agrarian change in the region. We have dealt largely into the local district level revenue reports and various papers of this interview period between various different operations. And these reports help us to better understand and reconstruct the changing dynamics of the colonial revenue machinery. And as these papers argue, the changes within the local communities need to be located within the interspecies of the colonial revenue machinery. After an analysis of the territorial and agrarian landscape of the region, we will come back to the example of Radiance Viewsweekly 1993, which will be starting on this page. The region of Singhbhum did not exist as one single unit when the British was entered the region. This was carved out from several rulers, several chiefs, and this vast arena of undulating and heavily forested countryside was seen as interspersed with streams and waterfalls, difficult to traverse, difficult to demarcate, difficult to enter, difficult to rule, difficult to take over, and even more difficult to live. Among the various tribal communities, the host were the dominant community within the region. Though certain ancient correspondences refer to them as nothing more than a tribe of bandit who lived to plunder, evidence shows that by the time of the 19th century, many of them were practicing settling agriculture to clearing forests and converting them into agricultural fields. They had their own social organizations and village councils, with the village heads being called the bundas, and a conglomerate of villages which was called a P, and the head of that was called a man. However, this multi-munda system, the social organization of the local communities, far from reflecting an unchanging model of Adivasi homogeneity and solidarity, was itself marked with various things and differentiation between them. Those who cleared the forest and converted them into agrarian fields of village founders were a privileged group within the local community, for whom the posts of headmen were hereditary secured. Even in the pre-colonial period, sections were already playing a role of intermediaries between the people and different chiefs, collecting rents and passing it on to chiefs and receiving section of them were also regularly mobilizing warfare between different kingdoms and different peoples. The British changed the policy of initial minimal interference and took over the region after a series of counter-insurgency operations through the 1830s and constituted the central region of Sindhu into what was called at that time as the Kolan government estate. The chiefs amongst whom the area was covered earlier, they were displaced, and the system that was adopted was to bring village councils, the monkeys and the mundas, the village heads and the peer heads, into the forefront and ensure governance in these areas through these village councils. And this was given a statutory sanction now. I argue that rather than being an intended outcome of colonial intervention, this policy of administrative exceptionalism in governing through village council was the result of the specific matrix of constraints imposed on the state by the people in the terrain. In an extremely unfamiliar region where the British were keen to prevent the recurrence of unrest, co-opting these sections for purposes of immediate administration was considered vital morality. The locus of power shifted to local structure of authority, and each field or conglomerate of villages in Kolan was recognized as an administrative unit for police and fiscal purposes. The monkeys, or the head of the chiefs, had under them a conglomeration of villages who were recognized as head police officers and lieutenants. The village headman, or the Munda, came to exercise authority in his village, subordinate to the monkeys. However, this co-option of this system of village authority into the imperial scheme of governance transformed the system and the village headman and the role in the community to a significant basis. As a post-mortem, scholars are arguing, this was far from preservation of the indigenous system of village administration. And in the years immediately following this extension of colonial control, colonial officials have actually set about identifying and restoring headmen in the series of revolts and rebellions, especially to them who, in the period when the region was taken over by the British, who in this counter-insurgency operation had given a lot of help to the British in terms of intelligence, in terms of military help, and different kinds of help during counter-insurgency. They were given as rewards and deeds over lands and were entrusted with the task of settling villagers and collecting revenue in return for certain commission. However, unlike the past, and how to show this system change in ways in what it was the pre-colonial period, the British came to exercise direct control in the succession plan of who would be a villager or who would be the period. And most of them, for example, someone who could not pay revenue on time, they were summarily removed, and someone else who was seen as more someone better to serve the British revenue because they would place that person there. Most of them who already enjoyed certain privileges were also further set apart from the rest of society as a result of greater access to colonial officialdom and the commission for the collection of rents, which only increased over decades and which is important for our people. This was a period when there was an incentive given to the extension of cultivation and bind people more closely to land, which led to development of different interests in land among these local village officials. As I have argued, these officials were inextricably tied to the colonial revenue apparatus. The changing status needs to be situated, needs to be contextualized within these changing revenue apparatus. In the beginning, for a long time, rent from land was main source of revenue for the British. And this was a period where there was special emphasis on expansion of the arable. Forests were seen as wastelands, and there were massive schemes for expanding the arable, and as a result, over time, initially the British were wary of introducing any drastic change for the fear of political unrest, for the fear of unrest by people and political consequences of the move. The first major change was only brought in 1867, that is around 30 years after the region was taken over. And a new survey and settlement was undertaken in that year. It was felt that improvements had been made in the cultivation of the region, and this was reason enough not only to enhance the rents but also to introduce other changes. And this metaphor of improvement, which repeatedly occurs in the revenue reports, can in fact be seen as commensurate with the level of sedentarization in India. The Deputy Commissioner Hayes, for example, commented that unlike the earlier nomadic habits, the hosts have gradually become stationary and established themselves in picturesque villages. This new settlement was intended to make them further, in his words, stationary in their cultivation and to get rid of the dense jungle the district is looking for. After the settlement, the earlier unit of rent assessment was seen as arbitrary and was changed into a specific unit of land. The the lands were once again measured and the rates were doubled. And the gross rental level. Importantly, this settlement gave special incentives to private headmen for the expansion of the territory. Title given, the deeds given to the village peers pointed out that they would be entitled to half of the rents collected as commission and they extended cultivation in any previously unassessed and unreclaimed land. This new settlement also formalized the earlier norm of official rewards to certain private heads who provided assistance to the British during Mughal conquest through a new tenure that it created called the Lucky Raj tenure or revenue-free grant of villages. These were granted in 1867 to 19 people, comprising of monkeys as well as some others, for their military services to the British. In these villages, the cultivators were to pay the same rent, but unlike other villages, they paid it not to the government but to the tenure of the village. Through these and various other measures, the colonial intervention in the agrarian scenario within Singh led to a series of transformations in the way land holdings and the way agriculture was organized in the region. By the 1890s, almost half of the area of the region was also under cultivation. This expansion of the Arab period when the colonial state would also continue to check and the practice of shifting cultivation and buying the people more intimately with land. This led to a development of different set of interests in land, and this was all too apparent in the divergent opinions of different classes of population regarding the extension of assessment on the uplands and lower lands that the next settlement in 1897 and 1893. The increasing value of lands and with it the coming up of an economic land market in the region led not only to the rise in the status of private headmen, but increasingly they also began to play a pivotal role in sales, mortgages, and transfer of tenancies. These processes of agrarian reorganization in the region also led to the convergence of the interests of section of the private headmen with that of the colonial state. This brings us back to the proceedings of the 1893 conference with briefly starting this period. In a recent quote of the host, Sanjukta Das Gupta argued that the lack of unanimity in the 1893 conference was simply a continuation from the pre-colonial period of their conflicting political loyalties. However, our analysis shows that these loyalties, quote Sanjukta Das Gupta, rather than remaining unchanging, were located within the interstices of the colonial revenue machinery. The new rent scheme allowed, I argue in this paper, a section of these headmen to stake a direct claim of occupancy over the uplands if they were brought under the rent scheme. In the interlude period of the settlement in 1867 and this new settlement in the 1890s, there had been an almost double increase in the population. Alongside this, the creation of protected forests and reserve forests and the coming up of forest department in the region and the usurpation of around more than 500 square miles of forested lands contributed to increasing greatly the pressure on the land in the region. But simultaneously opening out new frontiers of cultivation also contributed to an immense increase in the arable. As a cumulative result of the above processes, the practice of subjugating rural lands to cultivation had more or less disappeared from the region. Over these 30 years, the best of these rural lands, the uplands, as the next settlement officer noted, were occupied by the private headmen and the relatives to the exclusion of the poorer areas. I am quoting this from the settlement. During the settlement proceedings, the settlement officer went about informing the people that actually by this new scheme, the colonial state's intervention intentions to bring these uplands was basically that these uplands will continue to remain in an unsatisfactory condition with an extremely low productivity because excluded from assessments they had come in the hands of two influential people. We also went on to state that the government felt it necessary that apart from bringing it under rent assessment, also to make a just redistribution among the areas. However, this proposal of redistributing land was unanimously objected to by all the headmen, unlike this earlier proposal of whether they can be a rent assessment. The redistribution of lands would, in fact, have meant reversing the process that the colonial state had itself initiated through the previous settlement in 1867 by giving this incentive for agrarian expansion. It would have been in any case very unlikely to have emanated from the colonial state, considering its social basis and also the serious trouble as revenue road might have been. Conversely, for those holding these lands for somewhere in the past, the fact that the headmen had come to occupy most of these uplands in the past from 1867 to 1897, because the incentives that were given for the expansion of the area. The settlement and the recording in the name of individuals provided these sections within the local community a legal basis for their claim of an occupancy status over these lands. The lands which they could occupy over the last 30 years, these uplands, this new settlement, if they were to pay a rent, but if they pay a rent, they could actually stake a legal claim over these lands, and this settlement provided them that opportunity. In the context of an increasing value of land and a further usurpation of vast tracts of land by the Forest Department over the next few years, these uplands, recorded in their names, would certainly have been an invaluable asset. Captain Manmohan-Chidambaram, about whom it was said by the British, initially when there was difference of opinion within the headmen, it was said by the British that Captain Manmohan-Chidambaram, a statement from him would be without the least hesitation be taken to be accepted as representing the acquiescence of the locals. He was himself the holder of a tenure of rent-free, revenue-free tenure as the British tenure. This had been granted to him in return for military assistance that he rendered during 1857 unrest in Singapore, and over the years he had considerably extended his control by opening up the country and settling new villages. The life histories of some other headmen, which come out in certain legal cases that came up over the next century, also point out that many had extended their rights much beyond what had been initially granted to them through abuses of power that were prevalent by the headmen. The colonial state in this and other ways not only refashioned the hierarchies within the whole society, but also contributed to manufacturing legitimacy for the rural policies. To conclude this discussion on the 1893 conference, had not after all the decision to impose rents on the uplands been consented to at every stage of its imposition by the host themselves. By the end of the settlement, the gross rental from the region had almost tripled. This was despite the fact that the prevailing rents for the other classes of lands as fixed in the settlement 30 years back were retained. There was absolutely no change in the rate of rent for other lands. The increase, as I showed in this paper, was a result of the expansion of cultivation, but more so the assessment of rural lands, the uplands. To conclude the paper, in a recent work, Alpacha argues that in the face of weakening Adivasi solidarity, the resurrection of the indigenous systems of village organization and authority of the Mundas, the Para, can be seen as a Munda alternative to the state. She's worked on a different region of Jharkhand, and she's looked at the Mundas, and she said that this Munda system of village organization can actually be seen as this alternative to what's happening in terms of state intervention within this region. However, contrary to what informs us conceptualization regarding tribal quality and its relationship with modern state structures, a simple binary between the two cannot be posed. Our attempts to historically situate the new techniques of organization employed by the colonial state within the changing revenue demands clearly reflects that state power penetrated and expanded in the region through not externals but internal agents and systems of authority. It was these social groups, the Manchis and the Mundas in the case of Sri Lanka, who constituted these local agents of colonial administration. Needless to say, the terms of this engagement were not always static and continued to mark the various tensions. These local officials in the lowest rung of colonial bureaucracy were time and again seen as immigration and untrustworthy. On their part, they also undermined and supported colonial authorities in various ways. For example, during, say, forest department when it's coming to mark forest or the use as protected forest or import forest, they could use their authority and actually ensure that certain areas were not marked. They would ask for bribes and they would say that if the locals give a bribe, you will not take over the forest. So all of this continued and they could support colonial authority. However, for all their perceived problems, they had far too many uses to be dispensed with and continued to remain free intermediaries of the colonial administration. In fact, even now in the region, any attempt to this region continues to be marked with intense debates over this system of authority. There is a section which talks about removing the system of authority completely and removing about replacing it with village panchayats. But they also operate a very key intermediary and they also become very powerful in terms of powerful stakeholders within with political connection in the local society there. More importantly, during the British period, during this period when this was fashioned, this policy was fashioned during colonial period, differentiation within the local communities and co-option of these structures of authority and within the needs, imperial schemes of governance, also allowed the colonial state to manufacture legitimacy for the policies as we saw in the case of 1890. This is one example that I have taken as a point of departure for this paper, but many such examples are found in contemporary times. And in the words of Nandini Sundar, state actions find a receptive ground in the class differentiation within local communities, which in in turn they promote by giving some share in the spoils and further marginalizing others. The example of say the Chhattisgarh government in India and that the Radiance force of Adivasis in connivance with the local landed, most of whom came from the tribal community themselves, while the Sarva-driven promoted the laws is very pertinent here. A number of social movements derived a critical understanding of the above mentioned rivalry of an insider outsider have tried to come to terms with this phenomenon where they only see tribal community against fellow tribals, failing to see the convergence of section of tribalism with that of the state and the market. And what Manmohan says in terms of class differentiation within local community is very important. Such an approach which departs from a simple insider-outsider tribal non-tribal community state binary and locates this inclusion of state power through the differentiation of local communities will also help us to understand the complex struggles and conflicts within the tribal society that are going forward.